Oh, good morning, everybody. Oh, that's blown out. All right, so I haven't posted any new content in quite a while. We've had some things going on, and we're getting ready to start creating more content. So we figured we would go ahead and utilize the live feature of YouTube a little bit while we're getting situated with camera guys and editing and all that. So it's going to be a lot of just quick little live videos of different processes we do in the shop, how we do different things, what we do. You'll notice my nephew running around in the background. That's Noah right there. That's Noah. He's trying to hide. But yeah, so this morning I've got a few projects that I've got to do some different rotary tool embellishing on, using the rotary tools to cut in some of our jimping, using the rotary tool to do some of the engraving. For example, so I use the laser to go ahead and lay down the stencil so it doesn't wipe away. I'm going to come in and I'm going to carve out the engraving there. I've also got the top of the piece measured and marked out. We got to throw in our traditional jimping on these knives. So these are the ManSpot EDC knives. Both of these are custom ManSpot EDCs, and so a little bit different. This one's got the traditional hammer finish left in it. This one is obviously not hammer finished. Both of them still require the jimping across the top. But a lot of times people ask what I use to do the engravings and the axes and the knives and carving the handles and whatnot. So we use Dremel 9100s, which for a while were pretty difficult to get. They were out of stock for different reasons. But so Dremel 9100 flex shaft, Fordham hand pieces. That's what we use here in the shop. And so the first thing I do for our jimping. So I do hand file jimping using precision files. Sometimes with production style knives, it's easier and quicker for us to use the rotary tool. I know a lot of guys that use different rotary tools. They use different tools other than hand files for cutting in their file work. It's still file work, but you know, we use the rotary tool for speed and efficiency, and it's really consistent once you get the hang of it. The other things, you know, that we use the rotary tool to engrave, you know, are these guys. Again, we use a laser to lay down the base stencil, and then we go in and add all the chamfers and the finishing cuts, you know, our cross hatching, our contrast engravings. So, you know, we use a variety of different bits, from large carbide burrs to standard pretty small size carbide burrs. It's not going to focus. Down to some micro burrs, which, let me see, I didn't prep this beforehand. I probably should have. I apologize if you're impatient. But we do use some of the micro burrs too, the jeweler's burrs, the really small tiny jeweler's burrs. You know, and typically when we're getting into that level, we're using different magnifiers. So yeah, so safety with the rotary engravers. You'll notice my hoodie doesn't have the drawstrings anymore. Anything that hangs, you know, it's a rotating piece of equipment. Face shield is important when doing wood or bone or handle materials. Respirator. So when just doing the metal, I don't typically wear the respirator underneath the shield. You know, there are people that argue yes and no, you should be wearing the respirator. So yeah, it just depends. When I'm wearing the respirator, it's typically wood, bone, different types of handle materials. So I'm gonna have Noah close that bay door about 4 feet because it's really blowing out. Hey Noah, will you go close that bay door about 4 feet? All right. So typical Texas fashion, wake up in the morning, it's nice and cold, and it's only, you know, 10 o'clock and it's already hot. so I'm not going to be wearing my hoodie. So, hey, grab my apron, please. All right, much better. All right, so I'm not gonna be wearing my hoodie. I'm gonna throw my apron on. Anytime you're using the rotary tool to do any engraving or cutting, you're throwing debris. It ruins clothing pretty quickly. Sparks, burn through stuff. So if I'm not wearing one of my hoodies, I wear my apron, and you probably should too. I don't wear leather gloves when I'm using the rotary tool. The dexterity is a little off. And anytime you're doing any fine engraving or detail work, you need to have full dexterity. So I will wear some nitrile gloves. That's to keep all the little metal fragments from getting in my hands and my fingers. Little metal splinters suck. So all the pieces that we work on, that we do the engraving on, including the cold steel axes, we anneal so that the metal's soft. The reason why we do that, one, is we get to keep the bits longer. It's a little bit less wear on the bits. And two, it makes it easier to engrave and not have runaways or jumps in the rotary engraving. That's one of the big downsides to rotary engraving versus air pneumatic, electro pneumatic, and hand chasing, is there's a higher chance for runaway or jumps. I've seen a lot of guys ruin really, really beautiful pieces simply because the burr had a little bit of buildup in it. It hit a spot and it ran away from them. Like it ran out of the line. It's not always doesn't always ruin the piece, but you have to backstep, get it cleaned up, and then go back in and chase it back out. It's also the reasons why we use the laser engraver to put down patterns, paper stencils, transfer stencils, things like that. As you're working, the paper can tear up, or the transfer stencil can start to get torn up with the rotary engraver. We've tried all different types of stencils before, and we just figured we've got a laser engraver, might as well use it. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do this morning is I'm gonna start cutting in the jimping on these two knives. I've already marked this blade. I have not marked this blade yet. I'll get into that here in a little bit. So yeah, we're gonna get started. So like I said, safety equipment's always crucial. I've had buddies I've had to go to the hospital to have metal removed from my eye, even when wearing glasses and safety goggles. Shannon's got a little metal fetus in his abdomen that the doctors aren't going to remove from a broken hammer. So yeah, you work with spinny stuff and sharp stuff and hot stuff, you get hurt. So as much safety equipment as is reasonable, and yeah, like I said, we'll get started. So I'm going to move the camera down just a little bit. All right, let's see, is that going to be a good angle? Do I need to go up a little bit more? Yeah, I think we're gonna bump this up a little bit more. Like I said, excuse me, this is the first time we've done a live video, so there's not been a lot of preparation built into this. All right, so what I'm using on the Dremel 9100, the flex shaft, is just an easy lock cut wheel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut in notches on every other one of these lines, and then we'll come back, we'll swap out for a tapered burr, and we'll do our half moons, our hemispherical cuts on the other side. All right, so the other reason for the face shield is because I try to make sure I'm as in line as possible, so it's going to be throwing sparks right at my face. Now you can do this with a hacksaw. All right, so I've cut them in. Now all I'm going to do is make sure that they're even. I got a couple that are a little bit shallow. All right, so now that I got those cut in, we'll switch out the burr. We'll start doing the hemispheres. Now, like I said, everything's annealed right now. Everything's soft metal. It's just easier to work in before heat treat. Now there is a slight risk in cutting those straight line jimpings. There's a slight risk in doing that prior to heat treat, right? So square edges or abrupt edges during the heat treat are potential fracture points. We've had very minimal negative experience in cutting it with these because it doesn't leave an actual 45-degree edge. If you get down really close in there, it's actually a scoop. It's a slight scoop. It's a slight radius, which I think is probably one of the reasons why we haven't had very many issues. A lot of those really sharp cuts that some of the guys do with hacksaw blades, with really good blades, is they're leaving, we've looked really close, they leave, a more angular edge. It's not radiused. And again, I've only ever had a couple pieces that I've had issues with after heat treat, doing the file work and jimping beforehand. And it's enough that it's negligible, and so we continue to do it this way because it's a very efficient way of doing it for us. All right, so swapped out the bits. Make sure that it's in there all the way. Make sure it's nice and tight. Drop it back down again. All right. So here's where it gets fun for us. I always do over edge, and I try to keep my hand in the exact same position every time. So by trying to keep my hand in the exact same position every time, it makes it easier to be more consistent. I know, but I'm doing a video right now. Just 1 second. All right, so I cut in very small starting notches, and then we'll come back in and we'll make them deeper and match them up on both sides. So that is the basic of how we use the rotary engravers for jimping. I will do another video a little bit later, see how well this went, and probably show you more of the final product. I know you don't want to sit here and watch me just sit here and file the whole time, but so the next video we'll be coming in and cutting in the letters. All right, thanks guys.